Hey everybody, Fletch from All Things Overlanding here, and today I am joined by Patrick from Orbis Overlanding. So welcome, Patrick. Glad to have you.
Glad to be here.
And if you aren't aware, you've probably heard me mention a couple of times that I'm gonna be going on a trip to Canada here soon, right? So we haven't talked a whole lot about this trip. I've just kind of mentioned it in passing a few times. So Patrick is actually like the brain behind this trip and kind of the expedition leader that's planning the whole thing. And then I just got invited to go on this trip. So believe me, this is not my trip, but I'm excited and honored to be able to go on this trip. So again, I wanted to have Patrick on to talk a little bit more sort of high level about what the trip is, what kind of challenges we're going to face on this trip, and kind of give you guys more details because I've had people asking about where in Canada, where east, west, that kind of thing. So we wanted to touch on that a little bit today. So if you want to learn more about the Canada trip, if you want to learn about this epic, awesome trip that we're going on in a couple months, stay tuned. All right, so as I mentioned in the intro today, I'm with Patrick from Orbis Overlanding, and I'm gonna, for those of you that haven't heard of him, he is a Subaru guy, so I've actually heard of him a few years ago from some of my Subaru friends. So I've been aware of Patrick for a while and kind of followed him on social, but Patrick, can you tell us more about Orbis Overlanding, kind of where that came from, your background, and kind of what got you to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'm one of those crazy Subaru guys. There are a few of us floating around, and
they're good people.
They're generally good people. Yeah. Doing an off-road, doing an overland build in the Subaru it's basically, I'll describe it as it's a niche inside a niche, right? So when I started getting into it, it was because I liked Subarus. And then, you roll back a couple years and there's COVID and, we're all feeling trapped. And I was like, oh, I got to get outside.
Oh.
And I started coming across like a lot of people, right? The expedition overland guys.
Sure.
And then I fell into this kind of like, oh, hey, look, people do this crazy stuff in their Subarus. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I like Subarus. So I started down the road that way. And what I found was there's lots of support for stuff for Jeeps and lots of support for stuff for Tacomas and Frontiers and all these other things. And then there's a little bit of support for Subarus.
Yeah.
And the Orbis Overland came because I noticed that there's not tons of support, but really came out of a specific need that I wanted, which was to be able to carry fuel and water outside of the cab of the car, not on the roof, because again, I drive a cross track. So, I'm taking a small Subaru platform and then I picked the smallest one really I could, and that's what I overlanded. So I needed more carrying capacity. So the rack wings sit off the roof rack and sit on the sides.
Yeah.
And that's really what started it, because I actually had my first set custom built. I didn't have any intention of starting a business. I just had them built for me. And as soon as that started getting out there, they wanted that. So Orbis Overland came from that. So now I do have my own products. I support stuff for cross tracks and outback wildernesses and foresters, molly panels, rack wings on multiple vehicles. Some new stuff coming out later this year for Subarus and maybe some other brands. We'll see.
Cool.
But yeah, so my whole view or my whole kind of goal is to help the Subaru people and some of the other CUV types of vehicles that don't have a lot of support to have support to go do this.
So yeah, guys, if you want to learn more about Orbis Overlanding, of course, I'll put a link in the description below. He does have some really cool stuff for Subarus, like you mentioned, the wing panels where you can store fuel and stuff. His, Subaru is all decked out and rigged out, so definitely check out that link down below. Next, I kind of wanted to talk, though, about just kind of where this idea came from for this, because I know you've been doing this for a few years, kind of like an annual expedition. I haven't been on any of the previous ones before, but I heard about the one last year and I was like, well, that sounds really cool. And then when I heard about this one and kind of got invited to be a part of it, I was like, yeah, that sounds amazing. So can you tell us more about kind of where the idea came from for these expeditions and kind of what you've done in the past and what got you to Canada this year?
So being from Michigan, a lot of where I go or my friends or the group goes, of course, is north. So we go into the UP, we overland across the UP. There's lots of fantastic, beautiful spots in the UP, and I could probably continue going to the UP forever and find something new, at least for the next foreseeable future. But there is more to do. Certainly, there's lots of places to go. So this two summers ago now, we did a trek where we started on the east side of the UP up near Whitefish Point, and we finished up in Copper Harbor. And it's that whole trip kind of came together accidentally. It was really one of those like, hey, I'm gonna go do this. Anybody want to go? And a couple of people came, and we just had a riot. And by the end of it, for that year, there's a handful of kind of land use things going on in the UP. So at our last camp setup that night, several of us started talking about, hey, we could do there's a way here to do like more. We could do something where we're helping to raise funds, raise awareness. There's these land use things going on in the UP. So we collectively said, okay, so let's do this again next year, and let's try to get some sponsors, and let's try to just do whatever we can, right? I mean, anything is better than nothing. So that's what we did the next year. We started working with Cork, which is the Keweenaw Outdoor Recreation Coalition, and we actually did an event with them in Copper Harbor as we went through the area. And we had people that just came from the community, tourists that were in Copper Harbor that just came, so we got to share more about what Cork was doing, the land use issues up there. So I'll give you a link you can put in the video too for that.
Cork is great. Yeah, I've heard of them from the core stuff.
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of it's still going on up there. There's public land use situations like there are in lots of places.
Yeah.
But certainly up there. So that kind of kicked off this kind of Orbis Overlanding expedition series. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to build every year, something bigger. So last year's was 6 days across the UP. This year's is bigger. So there's two pieces of segue, I guess. I have always, since I was little, I've had a goal of wanting to go above the Arctic Circle and below the Antarctic Circle. So, most 12-year-olds or 15-year-olds are, like, oh, I want to go sit on the beach for a week. I don't mind the beach, but that wasn't my goal. I want to go north and way south.
Yeah.
So, this trip into Canada, I guess, is part of a, continuation of that kind of dream to go north. We're not going to make it to the Arctic Circle this year.
No.
You got to stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
But we're definitely going to go north. We're going to go north, and we're going to go remote. So that just kind of resonates with my goals for the types of environment that I think are really cool. The Boreal, Taiga forests, that's kind of my thing. So that's why we're headed north this year. It's 2 weeks. We're going to be gone. We've got a solid 14-day itinerary, and I should pop up the map here now and
sure,
show where we're going. So this area up here is it's northern Quebec, but really it's native lands of the Cree native people. So we're going way north, and then we are going way east. So out here at Canapiscau, and I've been practicing pronouncing that word for a long time. When we get out here to Canapiscau, this is the furthest you can drive in North America from any community. So, a lot of people talk about how cool Alaska is, Prudhoe Bay. There's all these areas in Western Canada, and don't get me wrong, those are really cool areas. I've been lucky enough to have been to some, hope to get back, but we are actually more remote up here than we are in those areas. When you measure like from a community, from someplace that has, basic services like fuel.
Yeah.
Right. There's this trip, because of the distance out, there's some logistical things that we have to really take into account, because there is a section of this road where we will go nearly 400 miles without fuel.
Yeah.
And with the exception of one of the rigs on our trip, many of us don't have that range. So it takes, this concept that we've kind of had for a long time, right? You carry extra fuel with you, but we're actually like having to calculate and make sure that we have the proper extra fuel, because there just isn't fuel.
As one of those inefficient rigs, believe me, I'm doing the math over and over again in my head and worrying about it. So
yeah, so we're gonna go do this. The road is called the Trans-Taiga. If anybody wants to check that out, that's what the route is out here. There's a couple communities in this area that we're hoping certainly to visit. There's some other things in the area that I'm looking really forward to. But what's up here is all of these lakes that you see on the map.
Wow.
These are all huge reservoirs, and it's the hydroelectric dams that create the reservoirs, and the power produced from these dams powers a good portion of eastern United States and Quebec and even Ontario. So these are just massive, massive dams. And that's just one of the really cool things that we're going to get to see when, being out that far. Yeah. We're basically going to lose cell service down here. I mean, we will go days without cell service, or certainly without reliable cell service. It's really, what this trip is not, it's not carry a chainsaw, cutting trees down every 50 feet, rock crawling through things that really is a hiking trail. This trip isn't about that. What it's about is we will be very remote. We will be absolutely vehicle dependent on getting us to and from, and team dependent. So that's part of what I'm really excited about. Is yes, it's remote, it's beautiful, it's untouched, it's basically wilderness. But the group of people, you and the others that are coming, I'm super excited to just do the trip with the group that has come together. I expect that we will have a ton of fun, and it'll just be a cool experience to do this as a group.
Yeah. If for people that are on the podcast, hop over to the YouTube channel if you want and see this, because when you look at this map and you look at how far we're going in 2 weeks, so it is about 1,500 miles each way.
1,600 miles. Yeah.
1,652. So we're doing 3,300 miles in 2 weeks. I'm also doing this in a 218,000 mile, 15-year-old Nissan Frontier that has had a history of breakdowns. So just the team thing is a very important piece of this, because I may have Cody dragging my truck half the way of this trip. So I feel pretty good about it. I'm going through the whole truck and everything. But yeah, if you can't see this on the podcast, just to show, give you some idea of this, I'm also like, what, 5 or 6 hours south of your starting point here?
Yeah.
So I've got to drive another 5 or 6 hours just to catch up with you guys and then get started on this trip. But I mean, it's literally like looking at a globe. And we're going from the Midwest to like one of the furthest points that you can get to in northeastern Canada on a road, the farthest from anyone. So yeah, that remoteness, that's fascinating to me. I love that idea because I'm a an outdoors person. I love being away from people. That's half of the reason I overland. So it's going to be really interesting to be that remote for that long. So
Yeah, and it's definitely it's kind of the epitome of out in the middle of nothing.
yeah. Yeah, so that kind of makes me think too. I was talking to another gentleman that I think you've talked to about this trip and kind of done some precursor talking to because he's done this a few times. And I had not thought he actually talking to this gentleman. We were on another camping trip and he was like, "Oh, Patrick, yeah, he's a great guy." I've been telling him about Canapiscal because I've been out there a few times.
Yep.
He was on a trip like 3 weeks ago with me. And he was like, "You keep talking about going to Canada. Where are you going?" And he's talking about Canapiscal. And I was like, "Oh, no, we're going up like into Canada, like Trans-Taiga." And he goes, "That is the Canapiscal. That's what you're talking about."
That's it.
Yeah. So I was talking to him for a while, but he was telling me about like how when you do pass, you don't pass traffic very often, but when you do, like there are like logging trucks and just big old semis that have to, move stuff up there. And he said they've had multiple vehicles go through windshields and stuff. Like that's a big concern with the gravel flying up from some of these trucks, and it's just unavoidable. So like broken grills, like they had one truck that went through this sort of same truck, and like their whole grill was just smashed to bits from rocks.
Yep.
Like headlights, grills, windshields, and like not to be excited about damage. I don't want to get damaged necessarily, but it's like it is exciting that like this is not a joke, right? Like this is not just a Sunday drive to the mall. Like this is remote and there are things that can go wrong and you can go through tires and there's a lot of like dangerous elements to this. And there's going to probably be a lot of like trailside repairs and or like tire patching and it's going to be a test for sure. So what other challenges though am I not thinking about?
Well, yeah, those because I've talked to a handful of people and yeah, some people, they've shared you see a truck coming at you, especially on the Trans Tiaga section that is the gravel. And about 2/3 in, it actually gets worse. And so I think really it's that section where you really have to be careful. But one guy I was talking to, he basically is like, you see a truck coming at you, pull over. You pull over, you stop and let them go by because then, yeah, any rocks that are kicked up or whatever, there's less impact because you're not both moving. So yeah, there's that. Fuel, like I mentioned, fuel is a big one.
Yeah.
We with that section, well, another challenge, it's going to be interesting in some of the areas is going to be language. Believe it or not, for people, I guess, that don't, that aren't tuned into Quebec, but Quebec is French.
Yeah.
And the Cree Nation, those folks speak English, but really once we get more than a handful of hours from Sault Ste. Marie and start really into Quebec, I have heard some people talk about that you'll walk into a gas station and they don't speak English, they speak French. You're in Quebec.
Yeah.
So we could have some challenges there. I've heard some stories about even like safety issues that became a little bit of problems working with local police because of the language barrier. So there's some things there. The vehicle damage is a challenge because you're out here, you blow a serpentine belt or something like that, you're not running down the road to the Nissan shop,
right,
or even the CarQuest. That's not an option, right? I mean, there was a guy that I interacted with just briefly who he had to have, it wasn't him, it was someone he came across who had to have tires flown in.
Whoa.
And I don't remember what the whole story was, but he had a really weird tire size. There was like, it was one of those like worst case scenarios that like builds on each other kind of thing. But basically this guy had to have like 2 tires flown in. You can imagine that's not cheap.
Yeah, no. So I'm just thinking now, I'm just leaving my truck if something happens, I guess.
We'll make room.
Riding with somebody else, and
we got room.
this might be the longest and last trip that my truck makes. Well, who knows? We'll see. Yeah, I could sell it to someone up there probably if they speak English. So, cool. So what about some highlights to look forward to? So, I mean, obviously we don't want to give away the whole trip for everybody out there. We want you guys to tune in because, I mean, this trip will take 2 weeks. So, I mean, I'm going to try my best to make a series probably out of this whole thing, like the whole Trans-Taiga series, and probably multiple videos about the trip and different days and the different things that we check out and that sort of thing, because there's not a lot of content out there about it. So you guys can all look forward to that. There'll be a ton of content coming out of this. But like there are some highlights that we've talked about on like some of the team calls and stuff that we've had. You want to touch on a couple of those?
Yeah, I think, well, so for me, one of the huge highlights is if everything goes to plan, not only will I get to go swimming in the Hudson Bay, which geographically counts as the Arctic Ocean. The Hudson Bay is a bay off the Arctic Ocean. So that would be my first foray into the Arctic Ocean.
Cool.
So hoping to not only be able to swim, but possibly camp right on the shore of the Hudson Bay. That would be a huge highlight. A couple of the other things I guess that I'm really looking forward to, again, the hydro dams, you can tour those facilities. So some of these things are certainly feats of engineering and feats of engineering done a long ways out from anything else.
Right. And years ago, probably.
And so, hopefully there's things, I don't know what we'll be able to share of those. They may not let us film there. I have no idea. We're going to find out. There's rumors of ghost towns. There's, hopefully animal encounters, not negative encounters, but hopefully we'll see animals.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
nice animals.
Be way out. So yeah, we're working on possibly even like maybe a boat tour on the Hudson Bay. We're trying to get some of that worked out. So yeah, I think it'll be worth tuning back in for.
Yeah, for sure. It's been funny because the whole group we have like a group chat going, and like meanwhile at the same time Expedition Overland is releasing slowly their Nordic series, and like it's calling back to like their previous series and stuff, like even their Mackenzie trip and stuff, and I'm like, when we get on these planning calls, I'm like, I'm really thankful for Patrick, I will say, and everybody else that's just way more good at this stuff than me. But like he's talking about the weather and like the fact that there's one of the challenges we're going to face that we didn't even talk about is like the light. The fact that we're so far north that it's light from like until 11 p.m. and then at like 2 a.m, it's light again.
Yeah.
So there's like that kind of stuff, but like there's so much that goes with the border crossing to get into Canada. The fact that like fuel, things that we can take across the border, whether you're going to be taxed on it, like cleaning your rigs so that they don't think there's bugs and stuff. And like there's all these factors that it's such a different experience than like driving a state or two over, which, I drive pretty far for a lot of my trips, maybe 8 or 10, 12 hours one way, but I'm still in the US. So like, I'm actually really excited about this because this is the closest thing to like real overlanding that I've probably ever done in 5 years of doing it. I mean, I probably spent 250 nights in a tent in the last 5 years, I would say. I mean, I try to get out quite a bit as much as I can, but this is going to be, to your point earlier, like 2 weeks of literally relying on our vehicles being so remote that if you don't have something, if you don't plan ahead, if if it starts pouring down rain and you're not prepared, you're getting wet and all your stuff's getting wet and it's going to be miserable. So
you're just not prepared. That's
yeah. So it's going to be a great test. I'm super excited to see all the people and all their different rigs. We have a good variety of rigs too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. So we've got a good mix of vehicles and people coming. There's 2 cross tracks going. Myself and my friend Jen. Our friend who has introduced us, Cody, he's coming in his Land Cruiser.
Technically, it's an LX 450. He'll correct you.
Yes, that's true. Yep,
he's fancy.
Lexus. Our friend Hunter and He's driving a Dodge 2500 series. That thing is huge. And my good buddy Scott and his 10-year-old son are coming. Scott drives a Ford Ranger Tremor, which is a great little truck.
Yeah.
He'll be hauling a trailer that he just picked up that will be significant part of our base camp setup. You, of course, and everybody here knows you.
Maybe.
And then my dad is riding shotgun with me, and going to be doing drone work and video work for across all the rigs. So yeah, so we've got a good group. Kind of a plethora of different approaches to the overlanding gig, and yeah,
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's going to be a ton of fun. I'm excited. We've only got like what 101 days from the time that we're recording this, I think.
Yes, 101 days, 13 hours, 39 minutes, and 54 seconds. Not that anybody's counting.
Yeah, right. Not that you don't have a live countdown on your phone all the time.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's my background right now is counting.
Nice. Oh man. Okay. Well, we need to get off this and we need to get back to work. That's what we need to do.
Yeah.
So
I've definitely got a rig list going.
Yeah. I'm tearing my whole truck apart this week and the next month probably. So I'm gonna do a from scratch build from pretty much everything in the back of my truck. So I've got to get going. So yeah, guys, so that was it. Hopefully that gives you a little bit better understanding of this Canada trip that we're going to be going on the Trans-Taiga. Super, super exciting, really cool with the border crossing and the remoteness and all the different sort of challenges we're going to have to overcome. So again, stay tuned. There's going to be a ton more content coming on this. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure to click that subscribe button down below so you get updates whenever new videos like this are coming out. Click that bell button so you know when these new videos are dropping about the Trans-Taiga. Also in the description below, as I mentioned before, are going to be links to Orbis and the team and all that kind of thing, as well as all my social media links too. So if you want to hang out other places, wherever you want to come hang out, I'd love to have you. And then of course there's the Patreon page and the Newbie Overlander group. Both of those are cool things. Again, totally up to you if you want to join, but if you want to, we'd love to have you. So again, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.